front rows, there's also, it's a very packed room. Wherever you can find space, grab it. Some folks are sitting here on the floor, which is great. There are folks at the back of the room as well. If you are in a position to give your chair to someone who needs it more than you, we encourage you to do so. But yeah, okay. There is wine also still being served. Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Mira Narsanios. I am the program director at the Poetry Project, and it is a true honor to welcome you all tonight to the Poetry Project for the celebration of Faire, a memorial for Fanny Howe. So welcome everyone to the Poetry Project. Emphasis on the two words, memorial and celebration. This room feels very celebratory, and there's just an energy here that I can feel, and hopefully that Fanny also can feel. So thank you all for being here. I want to thank, in particular, the organizers of this event, Rachelle Rahmé, Fiona Duncan, Chase Bell, and Ariana Reines for putting this wonderful lineup together. Yes, and bringing us all together for this occasion. I also want to thank our readers for being here. I'm gonna list them. Issa Quincy, Laura Henriksen, Linda Norton, Peter Gizzi, Ariana Reines, Eileen Myles will be joining via video, Lundy Martin, Sarah Callery, sorry, I can't see, Eleni Sikelianos, Rachelle Rahmé, Kazim Ali, and we have a special contribution from Mark Patrick Heatherman, who is a former Glenstone Abbey monk, who is also going to be joining us via video. Okay, so before we begin, I have a few technical notes to share. There is an accessible all-gender bathroom in the sanctuary. If you need to access it, please let me or anyone else on staff know, and we'll make sure to get you there. We also encourage you to grab this beautiful copy of our freshly printed newsletter of Winter 2026. There are some copies at the front of the room and also on your chairs. And upcoming events at the Poetry Project, I just want to say that on April 15, Bob Holman and Frank Rubino will be reading here, so please come back for their reading if you are around. Okay, I don't think I have any further announcements. I'm gonna read a very brief note remembering Fanny Howe, and I will turn it over to the organizers. Okay. Fanny Howe's first reading at the Poetry Project dates back to March 1974. Since then, she has read in this very parish hall about 14 times, each occasion marking a turn in her endlessly expansive and surprising oeuvre. From her debut book, Howe, to selected poems released in the mid-90s, to Second Childhood, which she presented here in 2015. To say that the last time she read at the Poetry Project was in 2023, when she read How to Keep Going in Antarctica for Bernadette Mayer's memorial celebration, is technically true, but somehow spiritually inaccurate, since Fanny is with us tonight as we celebrate her life and writing, as well as her newly released collection, This Poor Book, which is available for sale over there at the table. And as the reception of her oeuvre continues to grow, her return here at the parish hall will always be welcomed. We, an institution dedicated to poetry and housed in a church, are forever indebted to Fanny Howe's thinking and poetics. Her refusal to separate the material world from its divine expressions, her radicalism rooted in childlike rebellion, how she said no to injustice while never failing to say yes to the beauty and abundance of this particular world. These twin commitments run through her writing, where she appears both as an agential subject and as one willing to be acted upon, allowing herself to be bewildered by the here and now, in devotion to a kind of luminous immanence. The work we do here at the Poetry Project is inspired by the devotion Fanny practiced, an investment in beauty inseparable from a struggle against injustice. We owe Fanny Howe so much, a debt that can be settled, an ongoing gift we keep returning to for rage and refuge alike. At a 2001 reading she gave here, Fanny closed the evening with a poem titled Warning by the Palestinian poet Taha Mohammed Ali. I'd like to begin the evening by bringing back Fanny to the parish hall through Taha's words. Lovers of hunting and beginners seeking your prey, don't aim your rifles at my happiness, which isn't worth the price of the bullet. You'd waste it. What seems to you so nimble and fine like a fawn and flees every which way like a partridge isn't happiness. Trust me, my happiness bears no relation to happiness. I would like to welcome the organizers now to the stage. Thank you.
Is Rachelle not wanting to come?
No, she's coming.
Okay.
We said this is our Oscar moment. I'm Fiona.
Hi, I'm Chase.
Hello, I'm Rachelle.
And I'm Ariana, and I just thought we'd tell you really quickly how this came together. When Fanny died, I texted Fiona and I said, I wish we could have a wake, like an Irish wake, even though I'm not Irish and I don't drink. And but we started texting and this sort of collective emerged. And one of the things that we wanted to do was for this to feel celebratory and fun. Even though I didn't drink when I knew Fanny, I did drink with Fanny. And she was a lot of fun at the bar. So I hope that you'll enjoy yourselves tonight. I hope that Fanny is here. I feel shaky, so I think yes. And is there anything else that we've...
It was a beautiful introduction, Maren.
Yes, and thank you, Maren and Kay and everyone at the Poetry Project. This is extraordinary that we get to be here together. The last time I was speaking at this podium was at my mother's memorial. So thank you to the project for extending so much love across lifetimes, across time and space, and have a wonderful evening.
There's a book that Rachelle put together, and the proceeds of all the books except for this poor book are going to the Glenstell Abbey. And we'll ask that each reader introduce the next reader, so I'll introduce Issa Quincy. There's a list here, so you won't get lost.
Thank you. I am very moved to see everyone here today. I'm one of Fanny's grandchildren, and as that is, I'm sort of standing in for my cousins and brother and sister as well here. It's crazy to see everyone here for Nani, which is what we called her. I know she'd be probably in disbelief about this a little bit, so it's great to see you all, and thank you so much to Fiona and Ariana, Chase, and of course my friend Rachelle and the Poetry Project for putting this all together. Means a lot to us. I'm going to read a poem that I wrote for Nani, and then I'm going to read a poem on behalf of my mother, Lucian, who's Fanny's eldest daughter, and then I'm going to read a few pages of this poor book. So sort of a family affair in a way, if you will. I'll begin with my poem. I am here in the evening light, my eyes now white like the museum's barrow, with a voice that no longer trembles, remember the child. Our visit is a songbird, a rabbit, and lead you up the dash with the wind. I waited for your permission, faceless, and you gave it. It was a terminal we both knew. The open woods, a last request, an imposition, the letter E. The leaves narrowed the highway and were full of water. You said so. That is life, the grey flattering the green. You slept on the town beach, and I throughout the day. I wondered if you'd become lost. I gave you this land and told you the last time is never last. We met in the afternoon and dined that night at an oval table. There was tiredness, the deep kind, and no wine, only the promise of August. And now I'll read my mother's poem. It's called Elegy by Lucien Senna. In the beginning, I said, "Good night, moon," my mother, as you swelled in your scarlet shallop swallowed by Neptune's men. For a second, we gazed at each other across the spheres, those shaded viola baubles you were descending to, that shadow world, turning your tempestuous station to mute. Then at last I heard your cry, trembling timorously as Wonderland's white rabbit. Belfast Lock, 20 nautical knots, meet me there. And I recalled my vow I made at 7. Mummy, if I ever become a circus show in another life, qualified by my Siamese eyes, and I'm caged a long time alongside a triptych of wild-haired freaks contracting their limbs into green Gordian knots, I shall still sing for you. For long ago we both supped wisdom with the oldest man in the world, a Pukagen from Gunga Din, who stroked sacred mandalas onto children's palms, feeding them ginger birthday biscuits, their shape the shell of scarabs. And on the appointed day and hour, Belfast Lock, 20 nautical knots, you the cormorant perched on a rock. It is all gnosis, my daughter, and we are both wanderers, thumbing mandolins, sipping thimbles of nightshade by day, dreaming of when we were both neon blue geckos on that shattered wall of the burnt-out shack in Burma. And then I recalled the old man's words to us, incorporeal, you two shall both meet in the end, again and again, ad infinitum. And then I'm just going to read the opening pages of this poor book. It's funny, there's a bit of a family thing where we don't read each other's work, and there's so I honestly hadn't read a lot of Nani's work, and I kind of preserving Nani rather than the poet maybe or something. But after she passed away, I was in Cambridge, and the day after I went to Grolier bookstore and I bought a bunch of her books, and I was, damn, she's pretty good. You know, probably should have read it before and asked her some questions while I had the chance. But so much of what I've come to love about her poetry is so much what I loved about her as a grandmother. There's her playfulness, her kind of mischief, her gnomic shards, phrases and things like that, the wisdom, her playfulness, and so it's a salve to be able to read it. So I'll just read the opening pages of this poor book, which is a great title. I see a child between a star and a boat. It is a silhouette, and there is the child again, now attached to the boat, all black. Look at the weather, the futile wipers beating. I see the child on dry land, now with his granny. Like the boy in a story, he sees fire in wood and words and smoke, and he is good, too good to be far from anyone old. The father and the son are still in a boat out there, with spinnakers curved like pillows where they can rest their heads. Spindrift turns into curlews confused by the weather news. The sky is a fish packed in ice. There is a low sun and stiff silver wands on the horizon, and the rudder groans as the father and the ghost pass on. No sun on a grate, but a migraine headache and angry rain on the pavement. The boy wonders why a famous tyrant marched his men into a blizzard, and how the Russians burned Moscow with one candle. He only sees three choices: join, kill, or run away. What would his grandmother say? Blessed are you when people hate you and denounce you for choosing eternity. I have humiliated myself so I can participate in the city. I have smothered my own cries in order to survive. I have tied myself down to the number system so I can disappear into the stream of the economy. Whenever an old woman is seen going into a dark forest with 2 children, you know they are escaping. They are not dying. Why else would they be so bright of eye? These long white days have gone by with no recording. Therefore they are free. But what about the injustices viewed from the window? Intuitive women have power over others but don't know it. A boy reads about war in bed with his grandmother. She keeps getting up to look out. What she sees horrifies her. That's why she pulls the curtains to protect the love she can't carry down. Granny, why do you care where you were buried? Because I've lived in my imagination. Granny, why don't we leave? Look down onto the street at the children with their heads shaved and their skin too white. Do you want to leave this house and join the war, my dark-eyed child? No, grandmother. Let's pull down the shade then, open this poor book, and read. Thank you.
And our next reader is Laura Henriksen.
Thank you so much. Issa, that was such a beautiful reading. I really loved your poem. Thank you. And I'm really so honored and moved to get to be here with all of you, everyone who's gathered together to think and be with Fanny Howe in this way. I'm just going to share one poem from her book, The End, which came out in the early 90s. But before it's made of dust, some of the others do. I don't believe in seeking sheet music by Boston Common on a snowy day. Don't believe in the lighting of malls seasonably. When I'm sleeping, I don't believe in time as we own it, though some of the others might. Sad lace on green, veterans stamping the leafy snow. I don't believe in holidays, long-lasting and artificial. Some of the others do. I don't believe in the starlings of crenellated wings. I don't believe in berries, red and orange, hanging on thread-like twigs. Some of the others do. I don't believe in the light on the river, moving with it, or the green bulbs hanging on the elms, outdoors, indoors. I don't believe in a gridlock of ripples or the deep walls people live inside. Some of the others believe in food and drink and perfume. I don't. And I don't believe in shut-in time for those who committed a crime of passion. Like a sweetheart of the iceberg or wings lost at sea, the wind is what I believe in, the one that moves around each form. And we'll hear next from Linda Norton.
Hi, everybody. Thank you to Ariana and all who organized this tribute. I was lucky to be able to spend a lot of time with Fanny in California, New York, Cambridge, Gloucester, and Dublin in recent years. Last year, my daughter and I visited Fanny right before she moved into what she called the retirement home. She talked about death that night, as she talked about it in all our conversations. When I asked what would be the hardest thing about it for her, she slowly made her way into the kitchen, returning with a snapshot saying goodbye to them, she said, handing me an old photo of her 6 grandchildren. So I dedicate this reading to her grandchildren and her children. I'll share a poem I wrote for Fanny, preceded by some notes from an essay published in Periodicities a few years ago. My Mystic, the poem, is a love letter to Fanny Howe, the only writing mentor I've ever had. Our relationship started long ago when I solicited a manuscript from her for our new California poetry series at the University of California Press, where I was an acquisitions editor. Slowly, I came out of the closet as a writer, and Fanny became my great reader and advocate. In other words, I had failed utterly, and Fanny loved a failure. She was tart, skeptical, fond, and encouraging to me. Fanny and I have nothing and everything in common. She's older than I am and grew up in a Boston Brahmin world that fascinated me when I was a kid on the other side of the tracks in Dorchester. We're both Irish, she through her Anglo-Irish mother, the actress Mary Manning, and playwright, and I through my father and his unwed mother, an impoverished Catholic immigrant to Boston from County Kerry, the kind of Irish servant who worked for and lived with Boston Brahmins in the 19th and into the 20th century when Fanny was a girl. Here I'll quote from O'Clock, my favorite of Fanny's books of poetry. And each one was numbered 1 in that Hibernia of math, no mothers. And elsewhere in that book, either overdressed or a mess, she is a metaphor for the suffering of the Irish. Fanny and I have both lived in Boston and New York and California and have spent a lot of time in Ireland. We're both single mothers, romantic solitaries surrounded by children and now and then men. I wanted to capture the dynamic between us, the love and comedy, the occasional disagreements and misunderstandings, and our New Englandish spirits. Everything in My Mystic is rooted in the specifics of my relationship to Fanny, anecdotes we've shared, things I've noticed and written in my notebooks. Despite that factuality, the poem reads as a bit of a fairy tale, perhaps because Fanny is a mystic and I am not, and because we were always laughing while talking about loneliness, suffering, and the profane. My Mystic. My mystic is not old enough to be my mother. She yells, "No!" when she laughs at my jokes. She can't keep anything down and doesn't drink except for whiskey, wine, and water. My mystic is her father's daughter. My mystic has her own monk, a hermit who had his own monk, out on a boat on the Atlantic with a friend, tossed around. My mystic screams with laughter when they don't drown. My mystic has an early edition of Proust in a closet with her sheets and towels. Any house sitter could steal it, but no one does. My mystic picks at her croissant in the dark, swan's way in her lap. My mystic wants to know all about my men, so I tell her, and she groans. And then we talk about the new pope. She thinks he has a humble face. From her apartment, we can see an orange neon sign across the Cambridge green. At dusk, it tints the dirty snow. My mystic used to run in and out of that hotel lobby with her best friend, stealing candy. Now children crawl all over my mystic. In the pockets of her vest, the color of their red toboggan, they find hard candy. My mystic is a sister, is lilacs, is toast. My mystic has already bought her plot. My mystic is both the crone and the infant in the fairy tale. My mystic is a fairy. She flies everywhere but leaves no carbon footprint. My mystic has a device. Children text my mystic from LA, Dublin, Oxford, Paris. My mystic might have been named Affliction or Delight if born at sea in 1620, or 2 centuries later out of Cove and mad in steerage, perhaps Teresa. My mystic has lips the color of a rose named for the Cathars, who had but one sacrament, consolation. Thank you.
Oh, yay! It's Peter Gizzi.
How you doing? Thanks. Hello. This is really great to see so many people here. If Fanny were here, she'd be horrified, right? I mean, we did something for her in Boston many years ago, and she kept moving further and further back to the wall. But it's lovely that everyone's here. Fanny was really important to me, as she was to many of us. I met her when I was 26, and my life was going through a kind of radical change for the good. My habits were changing, and she just took me under her wing, and no judgment, unbelievably supportive, and she turned me on to Simone Weil, John Wieners, and Andrei Tarkovsky. That was pretty good. And yeah, we had an enduring friendship. It's just beautiful, and I miss her, but at the same time, we have her work, and the like final act of literary alchemy of which she put together this poor book, which I really think that you should all leave with tonight. It's a pretty amazing thing, right? Because it's like, basically she's writing one poem her entire life. And so she went through all these different books and put them together, took lines and things and made another book. So it's a really, yeah, I think it's an amazing read. So what am I gonna do? All right, I wrote something for that beautiful memorial we were at, Issa, in Cambridge. It's in the Poetry Project newsletter, thanks to Kay. I was gonna read From Animal Woe, sorry. It's an incredible book. You'll learn so much about her early life in relation to her very remarkable father and her young peripatetic life and their letters back and forth. Some are invented, but it really is a kind of window into her early life that I found to be, really wonderful in the sense that she was completely wild, and that's a good thing. It's a good time. She's kind of remained free her whole life. But I'm going to read a poem called Servitude. I thought I'd go all the way back to the beginning that she wrote. I wrote her in '86 to ask for poems for a journal I was doing then, Oblique. It was the first issue, and I'd read a book before called Introduction to the World. It's like a 50-page series that Jeff Young published. It was like, I wrote him and said, who is this person? Can I, this is before the internet, right? And he sent me her address, and that was the beginning. And so I thought I would go all the way back and just remember that poetry is a culture of welcome. It was for me, and it's how I practice it. And this is the best of what we have. The best of what we have is our love for another's poet. That's the great abiding thing in this entire project, right, in our lives. It's the work and the love of fellows. Okay. Servitude. This was the life assigned to me. I don't know why I was pushed into a seat beside books in brick yards. Pale adults stood all the way. My elbows had burns from leaning and climbing, though trees were always new. The pleasure of watching doubled over me until it was all I was able to do, and I was no longer free. Condemned to 20 seasons of white-faced action and piled onto a table to work. When my teeth fell out, I stuffed chalk under my gums, drank sugar water through a nipple, played among the babies of the middle class, learned I was humbled, then pulled the plaster from my face in sections which crumbled. Potholes and gravel, utility poles, a public lav. I bagged the seed and egg and waited for the rest to show me what a maggot is. If I could talk about divinity to the boss, it would not be pretty. The mop hits the wall, wet, a hidden child unfolds one more step into New England in nuclear plants, places I know where a god can giggle and shoot with a gun. Outside, maples drip rainwater tucked in the dark night. 2 boys in a tenement, a yellow dog, a brown leafy nest, and a hollow pool. Uncushioned, the mother sleeps on, holding her head down to drown, passive as a pauper, as a criminal willing to pay for her crime, since time is physical, not in the air. There's no way on earth for me to lock and free my hopes, or it would teach me how to die, and I don't want to. I who love a prison more than a master, where water washes off my past, leaving me naked as a bastard. I don't know why I like it so much, here on par with robins and birch, with all involved with aliveness as us. Torn from the language of my childhood, when I was cut to size and it was done, I leaned down to where the city turns soft. Like this, I splurged on liturgy. It gave me a migraine to read the word God in water lights and everything good. Instead, I saw stones, happy O's, the vowels and holes of planetary silence. A daring blue heron hops into place, and a cloud sends showers down. Some moves provoke endless patterns. Each thing is sewn into time. Then, having a child is the most extreme caprice, a smashing of space. I can't die twice in Nebuchadnezzar's dream of a universal history. The pendulum stopped on the tonic of its scale. I was near despair, a mother of children, for what is given is only sufficient to those who interpret the world and still leave it there. Love's body and mouth lie down together, its hidden parts soft inside, a right triangle. Its mouth is well made, muscular and wide. I like its hands, long shadows in the joints, both palms lined to show it's had some lives. All its hair prickles and shines, and its smile goes down. So does the sun. I love her skipping cadence, and Issa, right? She had that slight tremor, and it's like that her skipping cadence, it goes into her line. That was also her nervous system. It reminds me of like the skipping beat of a heartbeat preparing for battle. She was fierce, though she was small, but she wasn't small. I'm going to finish with a very short, just a little poem that she liked, and it seems appropriate given the fact that we're living in such a psychotic moment, but maybe they've all been that way, right? Don't you think poets have been writing through one rotten kingdom after another from the beginning? But now it's particularly dark. Okay. The blossom is stronger than us. But to want the beauty of the hollyhock, Augustine sad reading in the alcove, so much sand and wind with us all this time, so many boys and bullets crying. I got it wrong. Can I start again? Okay. My printer didn't work. I hate the digital world. Okay. Here we go. Sorry. The blossom is stronger than us. But to want the beauty of the hollyhock, Augustine's sad reading in the alcove, so much sand and wind with us all this time, so many bullets and boys crying mother before the weather, but why after all this nothing but the changing weather, playing the changes, the children, in the magnitude, love, in the horror, love. Ariana.
I just want to take a moment to show you a vocation that has no name. This is the book that Rachelle Rahmé edited that is available there at the table with many other wonderful publications. One of the things that we wanted to do was to extend the field of this event. I know that sometimes with this memorial thing, people are hurt when they can't be here, can't be on stage for whatever reason. And I myself didn't get to read at my mentor's memorial, and I know that there's a morbid parade of podiums and things like that. And we really wanted to avoid that. So I hope that you'll all spent some time with the publication, and all of the money from it goes to support Glenstill Abbey, which is a place that Fanny adored, and I was supposed to go there with her and Eileen Myles in the summer of 2020. We made t-shirts, we didn't get to go. Okay, so I met Fanny at divinity school, which I hated, and actually I tried not to go to divinity school, and I, for some reason, had really bad vibes about it, and I was down to the wire, and C.A. Conrad read my tarot, and they were like, you have to go. You have to go, you're gonna meet somebody there that you need to meet. And Fanny was my neighbor in this place that I hated. And I wrote a little remembrance of her for the project newsletter. I wasn't gonna say this because it feels, I don't know, it makes me cry, or maybe it's a pointless thing to share, but Fanny was one of the very few people I've ever met in my life who made me feel like there wasn't anything wrong with me. She just didn't think there was anything the matter with me. And if you've ever received a gaze like that, you know what a treasure it is and how rare it is. And since she passed, I've been thinking a lot about what that gaze means for poetry, like what that means about how a real poet receives another person and receives the world. And I had absolutely loved her. The last time I saw Fanny read was in Gloucester. She read with Maria Damon. And I didn't even know that the reading was happening. I found out in an insane way. I happened to be there that day. And it was the most authoritative reading of Fanny's that I ever saw her give. It was totally magisterial. And of course, there's all the like Olsen vibes flowing over there. So it was powerful. And my boyfriend, who I like dumped 3 days later, but then we got back together, we went and visited her in Cambridge the following day and spent like 4 hours with her, and we didn't take a picture, and I will never forget it. She blessed my life. She probably saved my life. I'm going to read a few pages from The Wedding Dress. This is a book of essays that came out the year I graduated from college. One of the things we wanted to do with tonight also was to kind of give a sense of generations and continuity through time, because I feel like Fanny's work, it sort of keeps on blooming and blossoming and getting bigger and bigger and anchoring deeper and deeper into our soul. This is a dazzling book of essays. One of the themes of it is kind of Jewish Catholic mystics. I'm going to read a little bit about celibacy. Trigger warning. And I'm gonna, it's just a few passages. If a person makes the decision to be the thing that history and chance are already making them be, this decision switches the mechanisms away from the fated into a zone of freedom. This is one definition of a religious act, as it is also of a selfless political act. Traditions are transformed, broken, and erased in women's bodies. and in the secret, imaginative lives of both men and women, unbreakable marriages take place. Simone Weil wrote that there is an unspeakable wrench in the soul at the separation of a desire from its object. It seems that a voluntary celibate makes her body into the place where nothing but light is falling and cells are breathing. Her senses experience emptiness and silence as indicators of what is not present in the sense of too present. To the voluntary celibate, emptiness and silence are welcome. They travel alongside and await you. Unlike things that you put on for a short time, then leave behind in time and place, things that acquire histories based in their tragically illuminated surfaces, emptiness and silence are liberations from saddening matter. In Carmel, they acquire a shape and presence that form a reverse prototype of marriage. In Carmel, one is wedded to Christ. While there are no loving looks or touches in this situation, there is apparently a freedom and a transparency to being alone. The body becomes an easy channel for the invisible. You may be lonely, but are not empty. One could say that the concealment of certain women in history has been a willed action. In other words, rather than reading silence as repression, you can read it as a means of liberation. Stein, she's talking about Edith, not Gertrude. Stein herself wrote that for the accomplishments of great things for the church, the Lord preferred to choose women who forgot themselves completely. I'm going to say that again. Women who forgot themselves completely. For example, St. Bridget, St. Catherine of Siena, and St. Teresa, the mighty reformer at the time of the Great Apostasy. Stein's convent experience followed many years of speaking on behalf of women and expanding the concept of motherliness to a near ideology. The rapture that lights up St. John's poetry also runs through the writings of Ganges poets and philosophers, Sankara, Ramanuja, Ramakrishna, Ramana Maharishi, Yogananda, etc., and other mystics. It is a rapture that seeps out of reversals of conventional relationships. In St. John's Trinity, the Holy Spirit is the burn, the hand is the Father, and the touch is the Son. A turning inside out of physical perception is the hope behind voluntary celibacy. What we think of as being a metaphor, a correspondence between the images of the world and the feelings they inspire in us, seems to be reversed for the long-term solitary. Unlike the body of a beloved lover whose arms and legs enfold you, give you joy, then part and depart, the air and your own senses of hearing, seeing, feeling become your companions and spiritual oxygen. They stay with you. The visible world is soon emblematic of the intentions of the invisible. Invisible, as in amor, comes first. And then there are buildings, walls, streets on which you find yourself walking, objects that rise out of a timeless ahead and seem to have been waiting for you. And now we have Eileen Myles.
Hey, you might wonder what beautiful place I'm in. So I'll say I'm in the Headlands in the Marin, and I'm wearing a T-shirt, which invokes a tour that didn't happen because of the pandemic. It was called Boston Cream, and it was going to be me and Fanny and Ariana, and we were going to go to Boston and Ireland and tour together, which was such a great idea because we're all either from those places or in love with them. And but it didn't happen because of the pandemic. So what remains is the T-shirt, which Ariana brilliantly made before the tour. And so, I don't know. You know, I never have very many new ideas. So I would say, among everything, Fanny remains about the least dead person I know. You know, and there's so much work. Like, I've read a lot of Fanny, but there's still so much work that I haven't read. So it's great that the breath continues, you know, and the breath keeps recycling, and it's a great future and present to have with this person who I love so much, and we all love so much. I'm going to read a poem, and it's just my favorite poem of Fanny's that I've found yet, and it's untitled, and it's from her selected, and here goes. Like a sheep sweating inside its thick coat, the earth settles and steams and lives by friction. Sunlight ignites the skyline, clean green after rain. Even wood is sick for the heat inside it to be met, and I associate. Now, I don't think that was the greatest reading of that poem, but I guess I will just say that I will say the obvious, which is that she invokes nature from the inside, which is an amazing thing to do, to go into the body of the sheep, to feel the trembling and the becoming of the earth, and you know, just like how we absolutely stand here and witness it all. And Fanny was such a poet of nature, but it does all that in 2 stanzas, and then it just has this one little line all by itself that goes, and I associate, which just blows my mind every time I read that. Because it just feels like there's all of nature, and then there's the poet who's kind of Fanny, but kind of not, kind of deeply anonymous. And I think she wrote with tremendous anonymity, which I think was an amazing power for a poet. And I just think she just evokes what one of the versions of the task of the poet is, which is to be continually becoming, to be in a place of imagining and keep imagining, and be such a partner to nature. And then it just, even though the poem ends with a period, it just opens to everything, you know?
Our next reader is Dawn Lundy Martin.
Hi. Today is my birthday. And I say that not because I want y'all to say happy birthday, but because Ariana texted me, I don't know, a while ago, and asked me to participate in this honoring of Fanny. And I said, well, it's on my birthday. And she was like, oh, forget it then. I understand you're not going to come. And I was like, no, I'm coming. This is exactly where I want to be. This is exactly what I should be doing on this day. And it also matters to me that I think that I've had many different kinds of birthdays. And one of those births was when Fanny selected my second book, Discipline, for the Nightboat Book Poetry Prize. It was a long time ago. But it was a kind of birth because this was a book where I was started to write in prose poems. And she saw something in the work that I didn't see. I thought it was about something else, you know? So what I want to do is just read the foreword that she wrote for the collection. It became instructive to me, not only about what was happening in discipline, but kind of what I was attending to. Through her eyes, I gained a new lens. In his introduction to Bottom Dogs, Edward Dahlberg, D.H. Lawrence writes, "What the young feel intensely and no longer so secretly is the extreme repulsiveness of other people." He wrote this in 1929 in the wake of the Great Depression and ascribed this condition to an erosion of mutual sympathy among American citizens after decades of exploitation and violence directed toward the earth and others. This many years later. His words evoke our nation now and our nation now. How can artists respond to the loathing that trickles down to the youngest of the young? In the case of discipline, the poet responds directly and personally, discovering the larger trauma in the materials of her own life. She is heroic because her refusal to hide or escape from a single fatal moment, like Antigone. This is her mission. It is a modern story composed in the frenzy of potential suicide and agitated despair. She makes her path straight by her continual running back and forth, carrying her outrage. That sounds right. You can remember reading this book, the nausea once identified by Sartre and certainly by Dahlberg. This nausea has lain dormant since students took to the streets in 1968, but it has not been nowhere. It is firmly planted in the racialized American experience, in segregation and the continued interference with the bodies and progress of girls and women. The book digs into the roots of our country by entering its pivotal derangement, just as Antigone enters the cave/grave. And I don't see how it could dig further. Down there, it's hard to see, and one feels one's ways blindly and only by touch, a touch jerking with repulsion and guided only by memory, not prophecy. A courageous act or of feeling is what we have here, and a return of the rejected person as a recognizable companion. Fanny Howe. I love that because I feel like I'm writing toward that in my work. And I love that she saw it in the work. I'll read just 2 pages from Discipline, and then I'll try to read a poem by Fanny Howe, but it's on my phone, so let's see if I can see it. Excreta, or sentence, or ripe. Here the mouth held, grip over and flood liquid, a defecated magic. Everything said was surprising. Cosmologica in seconds, in breath attempts under weight metal. Hear the jar, hear the inside of the jar, excruciation fixed or phrase or doubt. They went in and 3 emerged, although significantly reduced. Dispossession fragrance like mules or dung. When one is told the structure or the method and the staggering absence of, or the omnipresent existence of, it becomes difficult to get on the subway or bathe one's own body. There are acts of forgetting, these are, though they appear to be acts of resistance or love. You can take what they give you, or you can fuck the whole world, maybe even yourself. Just open the mouth square and press pills toward back of tongue, tube the throat, and imagine an easy procedure. Everything's digital now and precise. Nothing to fear. Date rape won't ruin you. The eye is a condensed system. If you follow the instructions, you can't accidentally overdose. Gray goose sentries yell into speech. You're perfect. You're fucking perfect. Either way, walking is like swimming, though Delaware, and you barely notice. Mine is a dagger buried in my parents' backyard. Door spills open. Oil pool leagues, and a tiny body wades around listless. Fanny was perfect. Ariana, perfect. That's not in the poem, no. Okay, let's see if I can read this. So, and this is a prose poem by Fanny. Let's see if I can see it. It's, This is cool because I wasn't going to read this poem, but my lover is hosting a dinner party or supper that she hosts every other week in Pittsburgh, and I told them what I was doing here, and they read this poem at the dinner. So, you know, it's this moment is extending. Coyote scruff in the canyons off Mulholland Drive. Fragrance of... See, I already fucked it up. I don't even know where the image went. Where'd it go? Start over. Don't touch the screen. All right. Everything's a fake. Coyote scruff in canyons off Mulholland Drive. Fragrance of sage and rosemary, now it's spring. At night, the mockingbirds ring their warnings of cats coming across the neighborhoods. Like castanets in the palms of a dancer, the palm trees clack. The Hollywood sign has a white skin of fog across it where erotic canyons hump, moisten, slide, dry up, swell, and shift. They appear impatient to make such powerful contact with pleasure that they will toss back the entire cover of earth. She walks for days around brown trails, threading sometimes under the low branches of bay and acacia. Bitter flowers will catch her eye, pink and thin, honeysuckle or mock orange. They coat the branches like lace in the back of a mystical store. Other deviant men and women live at the base of these canyons closer to the city, however. Her mouth is often dry, her chest tight, but she is filled to the brim with excess idolatry. It was like a flat mouse, the whole of Los Angeles she could hold in the circle formed by her thumb and forefinger. Tires were planted to stop the flow of mud at her feet, but she could see all the way to Long Beach through a tunnel made in her fist. Her quest for the perfect place was only a symptom of the same infection that was out there, a mild one, but a symptom nonetheless. Thank you. Sarah Callery.
Hello. I was asked to read as a fan.
I feel worried about all you people standing over there. Are you, hi Monica. Are you, I'm not only worried about Monica, I'm worried about everybody. Are you on, there, if it, I don't know if you want to sit in the aisle. It's almost over. I'm just going to remember a few things about Fanny, read a short poem, and then read something I wrote for her. My first memory of meeting Fanny actually took place here when Lisa Journeau and I invited her to read in about 1996 with Ed Roberson. And actually, I should have asked Miren what year it was exactly, but it was around then. My next memory of meeting Fanny is she invited me to read at UCSD, and she gave me very clear instructions about which train station to get off at. And I didn't get off at that train station. I got off at the next train station, which meant that she had to drive about an extra hour to come get me with no whiff of annoyance. And I didn't even realize that I had messed it up until years later. And then I was marveling that she wasn't annoyed, because I would have been so pissed if a young poet breezily made me drive another hour. But I think it speaks to something that a few people have mentioned, which is Fanny's complete, just acceptance of the fuck up. And also her acceptance of others' needs. So I just wanted to start with that. And you know, I guess what's notable about that is that it was in her nature to accept those things. The last time I saw her, the September before she died, when I decided to knock on her door in the night, and she let me in because she was like that, delighted, telling me that this and that poet was heroic. Fanny was heroic. She's the mother of mother poets I turn to when I want to feel mystical, inspired, astounded, bewildered. She stood and stands for poetry's generosity. Oh, and I love what Eileen said about the tremendous anonymity, because when she died, I started rereading much of her work, and I was just amazed at that. There's an egolessness to her work that's very rare. So when I knocked on the door, she opened it, and I saw that she was sleeping on the pull-out couch in the living room, so that her grandson, Issa's brother, could have the bed. No complaint at all. And so I feel like it was this indifference, or I'm wondering if it was this indifference to her own comfort. When I stayed with her that time in La Jolla, she was sleeping on a mattress on the floor and served me a can of Campbell's soup. I heard she often just handed grandchildren a slice of bologna for lunch. So I'm wondering if it was this indifference to her own comfort that stripped her poems of all the fluff, down to the sometimes sparkling, sometimes stark spiritual core. If she didn't care about personal comfort, she did absolutely woo mischief and delight. And I loved hearing at the memorial in Cambridge how much she loved to terrify her grandchildren. They can tell you more. Issa can tell you more. So 2216 from O'Clock, which has been much invoked tonight. Powder the greens of hemlock, then, in a disk of eyebright, mallow and self-help. Spin, discover the equation for delight, and never speak again. Over the years, it seemed that what Fanny told me to do, mostly I did. She told me to have a baby. Guess what happened? And then I learned from Eileen that she told everybody to have babies. Some of us didn't listen, some of us did. She told me that she wasn't sure people should write books about their families, and it took me 25 years to finish the book about my great-grandmother, but I am sure that the Fanny delay made for a better book. And Rachelle asked me to write a poem for Fanny, so I'm going to read that. It's a little bit different from what appears in the book that somebody mentioned that I haven't seen yet. It has a couple quotes. It was from notes I gathered on the day of her memorial at Mount Auburn Cemetery. And it's called Fanny fucking Howe. By the way, the book that Peter didn't read from, Manimal Woe, I think the first line is, I love this line, it's in the book, which is, "Dear Dad, don't worry, I know you're dead." So I stole that for this. So Fanny fucking Howe. Dear Fanny, don't worry, I know you're dead. You're the one who told me in this very cemetery about the thinning when the dead draw near. The out surrounds you now, a whole invisible O to live in. And we saw some old poetry gods standing in the road whose hips would no longer carry them to the grave. In the opulent rift, translucent sheath of the shed skin, we have been given so many gifts, words from the lips of our elders, poems that were made of lives offered us ways to live. The refrain that runs through the day is the title of this poem. Fanny fucking Howe was everybody's best friend. And next is Rachelle Rahmé.
Good evening, everyone. This is really an honor to be with poets I admire and friends, honoring Fanny Howe. I titled the book that we put together for this evening, A Vocation That Has No Name. I chose that because I found it's a phrase that reappears in Fanny's work. I'm going to read a passage that begins The Winter Sun, which Graywolf put out in 2009. This passage also appears in Night Philosophy, but doesn't end where I'm going to stop. It goes on into further reflection. And so I'm intrigued by this return to an idea of a vocation that has no name, because often I find myself wondering what it is I'm doing, and Fanny nailed it. So this is the beginning of The Winter Sun. Since early adolescence, I've wanted to live the life of a poet. What this meant to me was a life outside the law. It would include disobedience and uprootedness. I would be at liberty to observe, drift, read, travel, take notes, converse with friends, and struggle with form. Struggling with form meant creating problems of self-expression that only I could solve. This required boundless time, no obligations, lots of conversation and love, little money, little stability, but always freedom to play with sound and meaning. I was surrounded by poetry at home, so this should have been easy, but another atmosphere undermined its powers. Like the rest of my generation, I was catapulted into a double bind. On one hand, each of us was valued, treated to an education in humanist values, and nourished for a long life. On the other hand, we were told to hide under our desks during nuclear bomb alerts and to wait there in the knowledge that we were as disposable as pieces of tissue paper that could blow away like ashes. Now the millennium has come and gone, and I am in a hermitage, facing a field of snow and bristling grain, where there is a line of gray trees at the end. The sky has the wintry golden blush that makes it seem to swell like water. I hear cars and trucks in the distance. Over the years, I've written during days just like these, when there was snow or cold and some sense of safety and enclosure. More often, I've written on the road, in the middle of children, crowds at train stations, airports, motels, bus depots, in offices and schoolyards. A friend wrote down some words for me shortly before he died. Poetry is backwards logic. You can't write poetry unless you have knowledge of or taste for this backwards way of finding truth. Another person said, "Sound is eternal, it has no beginning." And a Hindu teacher said to me, "The Upanishads were never written for the first time." I'm always wondering at the way there are varieties of points of view, just as there are different names for the same things and concepts. This collection of notes and memories is an effort to resolve the question, what was this strange preoccupation that seemed to have no motive, cause, or final goal, and preceded all the writing that I did? Did it begin in the environment of childhood, or was it formed out of alien properties later? If I had known what I was doing all along, would I have done it? What people, places, books, and things guided me? What could I call what was calling me? A vocation that has no name. Thank you. Kazim Ali, next.
Hello, everybody. Wow, there's so many people here. This is very exciting. I like hearing about this Fanny from everybody. This poet, philosopher, filmmaker, theologian, thinker. Nobody's talked about her novels yet, which I think are one of her great accomplishments. Yeah. She had these incredible characters. You know, you had Gemma, the Italian girl in racially segregated Boston. She called it the Deep North as an answer to the Deep South, who, you know, kind of infuriated with racial injustice, starts passing as black. You have Felicity, who is seeking she has no health insurance and she needs a kidney for her daughter, kidney transplant for her daughter, and so she gets wrapped up with this illegal organ harvesting ring across the U.S.-Mexico border. There's a man named Temple who's running the ring, and he has a sex worker named Money, who is his right-hand woman. So these, you know, people thought she was like Beckett in her writings, in the fiction, but she was really more, I think, aligned with Chekhov. Halfway through her novel Nod, which tells the story of two young sisters growing up in Ireland, the older sister, Irene, fabulous, beautiful, an actress, and the favorite of her parents, and the younger sister, Clodagh, who's a little clumsy, she's a little misbehaving. Yeah, no autofiction here. Halfway through the novel, Clodagh writes a note that says, rescue me, or something. I can't remember the exact words she writes on there, save me. And she puts it into a bottle and she throws it into the Irish Sea. And lest you think that's the end of the bottle, the last paragraph of the novel tells the story of a young British soldier who is thrown from his boat, and even though he's wearing full combat gear and combat boots and his backpack and his rifle, he encounters the bottle and grabs a hold of the bottle, and the bottle keeps him afloat, and he survives. He keeps the bottle and he puts it on his mantelpiece, and one day when he's a very old man, he takes down the bottle to read the letter that Clodagh has left inside. You know, to find out what she really wrote, you will have to buy a copy of Radical Love, which is, I think, sitting on the table over there, and find out what happens. But the Fanny I knew is the Fanny who dragged me around the streets of Minneapolis in April. It's very cold in Minneapolis in April because the restaurants near the university did not serve wine, and she had to have her wine. And she said, she leaned across the table and grabbed my hand and said, I don't want you to think I'm an alcoholic. I'm not an alcoholic, but I do behave like one sometimes. And the truth about Fanny is that she had fun in her life. She was excited. She said, and I really think she meant it, that she didn't trust anyone over the age of 5. I watched her get down on her hands and knees with Maceo and Jennifer's child when probably 2 years old, and speak to the child in baby talk. And the child spoke back very seriously. I remain convinced that they all understood each other. I had gone to visit her in Nantucket. It was 2007, so at Martha's Vineyard. It was in 2007, and she was preparing the manuscript for Winter Sun at the time, and she was very nervous about the manuscript for Winter Sun. And she said, I think I'm telling too many personal things. Will you read this book and tell me what you think? And I'm sitting there reading the book. She's sitting in the chair watching me intently. But then Jory called, and so there goes Fanny into the garden with her phone, pacing up and down the garden on the phone with Jory, talking a mile a minute. I'm sure at the time I would say she was spilling tea, but I learned at the memorial she would say vitamin G for the gossip. And I read the book, and I told her, no, I don't think you're telling too much. I think this is a beautiful book. Keep it exactly the way it is. That is not the version of Winter Sun she published. She did take out a lot, some of that more personal stuff. But it was on that trip, actually, that we went for a walk on the beach. And in all earnestness, this was like one of the most brilliant afternoons of my life. We're walking along this beach, and she's spinning this story for me about how when JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette and Lauren Bessette, the plane crashed. She said this is where all the luggage washed up, and so we had to walk up and down the beach and collect like the wreckage and the luggage. And as we were walking, there was this sort of thing that started floating in, and we were captivated. And Fanny's looking at it. I don't have very good eyes, even with my glasses on, and she said, "I think it's a body." And I mean, it was like incredible. So we're standing there, we're waiting, it's coming in closer and closer. It's a very weird kind of lumpen-shaped thing. And I started to actually imagine it could be a body. It finally comes close enough to see what it is. It is like a crumpled up kind of silver thing, and I grab it, and it's one of those balloons. And it said happy birthday on it. And Fanny says, "Oh my God." And I said, "Is it your birthday?" And she said, "It is." I held this story in my heart. I mean, so much. I wrote a poem about it that is in one of my books of poetry called Silver Road. And I was, Ray Armentrout lives on the same street that I do in San Diego. And she was over for lunch one day, and I was recounting the story to her. And she said, "You were in Martha's Vineyard in July?" And I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "Fanny was not born in July." So, I mean, she is just going to haunt me forever, I think, in her way. And so that is the truth I know. And the Fanny that we heard about tonight is absolutely Fanny, right? She did love Pope Francis. She did not think very much of Pope Benedict. She always referred to him in my presence as Pope Ratzinger. She did go to Mass every day. She went to daily Mass. She did not go to Sunday Mass. She had her own way of approaching her Catholicism that I think was very connected and related to Hindu Vedanta philosophy. And the last time I saw her was in March of 2023. Carolyn Forche had brought Fanny and I out together to the Lannan Center, and we had a beautiful weekend. By that time, Fanny was moving a little slower. She still had a lot of energy, but I kind of had to go with her arm in arm. And we spent so much time together, more time than we had in years and years and years since I moved away from New York and to Ohio and then California. And I was putting her in her cab at the end of this visit, and she grabbed hold of my wrists again, and she said, I feel like this is the last time that we're ever going to see each other in this life and really talk, she said. And we stayed in touch after that, but she was right about it. That was the last time I saw her. When I heard about the new project, I started writing my own version of it in my head. And these are all little quotes that stay with me from Fanny. And some of them are probably misquotes because they're all from memory. The word "to" is a joke. That's why I'm always laughing. I am Rilke and the actor who played him. Little word, who said me? Am I owned or free? Human was God's secret name. Are my children safe? If this life isn't enough, then an afterlife won't be enough. I believe in the one that moves around each form. But you forgot something, Ma. What did he do to prove himself worthy? I would like to close by reading a poem that I actually wrote on the passing of my own mother, which happened only 2 months after I saw Fanny in DC. But I suppose it is also for my poetry mother. I thought, you thought, the world in shapes moved. What is still the unsober world moves. On your last day you shopped, drank coffee, swept the porch. You thought, I thought, unseen is better than seen. This scene appears to disappear. All matter matters. In music, after a swell, there is a rest. But in the end, one never does get the ending right. One stands on the porch with a broom, thinking, where is my son, that far away sound? Dear Fanny, safe travels. Send word when you can. I'm pretty excited. We're going to hear from Mark Patrick Hederman from the Glenstal Abbey, which was a place so important to Fanny. Well, I'm not going to do the video. Oh, he's doing the video. Okay. Bye.
This is Kais Heller, and I'm here with Mark Patrick Hederman, a monk and former abbot of Glenstal Abbey in Ireland. And we are talking about Fanny Howe. And you have just said that your time with her was quite hilarious.
Always. I mean, it was always outrageous in many ways. I mean, for instance, Fanny Howe, this is an abbey here, Glenstal Abbey, and the first time Fanny came here, she drove in a very, very battered looking motor car, and when she arrived in the abbey, she saw a whole lot of what she considered to be very, very expensive motor cars, and she left immediately, saying that this was a total scandal, that she couldn't possibly consort with people who had motor cars like that. Now, these could have been anybody who But I always found that Fanny was a paradoxical mixture of what she claimed to be a Marxist, but all her friends were highly aristocratic, so that she was forever staying in castles and living it up with the most, I suppose you'd call them aristocratic people, having a wonderful menu and various other luxuries, and yet she would be, and of course herself, she wore one single outfit as far as I could make out, and it was always the same, black. She looked like somebody who had just taken a rag off a washing line and draped it over herself. And so, I mean, it was a kind of a terrific combination of Saint Francis on one hand, and then she would be the most exquisite taster of every luxury and every high point of sensuality. That was what was so delightful about her. But then her poetry was always extraordinarily like the barbed wire that surrounds a concentration camp. They had that kind of tension and feeling about it, and she kind of made herself suffer with every person in the world that was enduring some kind of very hideous persecution at some place, and that made her a very definite and I suppose she was Samuel Beckett's retriever, as it were, and her style owes a lot to him, I think, anyway. And I do know that her mother was supposed to have had this very torrid affair with Samuel. They both came from Foxrock in Dublin, so that when her marriage in Boston wasn't quite as successful as she had imagined, that she came home and had this very, very torrid relationship with Samuel Beckett, so that Fanny and Suki, I think, were always slightly perplexed as to whether they were the offspring of Sam Beckett or of their own father. And in a certain way, Fanny was definitely a spiritual daughter of Sam Beckett, and because her style had all that very, very tense and sparse electricity about it, which meant that you never knew, you could never guess what the next word was going to be. It was always a huge surprise and sometimes a shock to go from one end of a sentence to the end of the sentence, because she had this incredible capacity to do a complete U-turn, and that the word you met when you turned the corner was absolutely different from what you had expected. And the same was true of her in her life as well, so that whenever I was with her, whenever, I mean, we had the most amazing trips. For instance, we went from Los Angeles to Sonoma Valley. She was driving, and I mean, when you say she was driving, she was a racing driver as well as everything else. I mean, people who come, little country people from Ireland who were driving along the coast with Fanny Howe, it was like as if you were in some kind of a race that was going. So, and then what she imagined that I, being a monk, would be totally shocked by all sorts of things. And so she booked us into the most awful places on the way, almost one of these kind of hotels, a motel on the road, which was more or less like the one in Psycho, where the guy behind the counter had murdered his mother and put her up in the back. She was having a shower, I remember. But anyway, we said, no, we're not staying in that dump. And Fanny was very disappointed then. So then we would go to this other place, which she had adopted, called Sky Farm, where the man who owned the Sky Farm had everybody staying in wine barrels, that the two adjoining properties to his hermitage were very successful vineyards, but they had given up using wood, and so they were using aluminium. And so he bought all the huge big wine vats, and then we went to sleep in these. The smelt of wine. And when the rains came in the springtime, all sorts of snakes joined you in the wine vat as well, in your sleeping bag. So these these are the experiences that I associate with Fanny, what you might call extremist spirituality. And it was always very joyous and hysterical. So I can't tell you how much, but I don't miss her because she's still present. She's there all the time and making outrageous signals that I should be even more complicated than I am at the moment.
Thank you very much.
What do you think? Are you seriously thinking?
This was the unedited contribution of Mark Patrick Henderman. This concludes our evening. I want to thank you all so much for coming. I want to thank the readers for gifting us with such beautiful recollections, memories, and stories of Fanny Howe. Really, her spirit felt alive tonight in the room. Thanks to all of you. I want to thank the organizers of this event, Fiona, Ariana, Rachelle, and Chase, for putting this together. I also want to thank the Poetry Project staff working tonight, James and Pedro at the sound table, Gary at videography, staff support with Kay, Heather, Will, Laura, and our volunteers, of course. Thank you all for coming, and please come back to the Poetry Project.